Poofy. I'm letting everyone know that today is a hoodie day. Hi witchlings, welcome back to my channel. It's me, your local chaotic witch aunt. Like I said, today is a fucking hoodie day. It's gloomy outside. I was shivering uncontrollably for like 10 minutes because I'm like, I can wear a t-shirt, it's 60 degrees out. It's cold, I'm cold. Today, I am gonna talk about how I connect with my ancestors. I'm pretty excited to talk about this. The goal is to kind of open up a little bit with you guys about my ancestral veneration process, how I honor my ancestors, but also in hopes that me talking about this and what I talk about gives a little like inspiration for people. I also specifically have a vlog coming out this month on Patreon only content, that will be talking more in depth about something I mention here. But yeah, there's basically five ways that I can identify like in my day-to-day that I use to venerate my ancestors. At this point, ancestral veneration is very much intrinsic to my practice. It's very embedded in my daily practice as well, whether that is working with ancestral herbal allies, particular methods of Italian American folk magic, or just doing like activities or eating food. But I'm gonna get more into this. The 5 categories are activities, research, food and drink, veneration, and community. Veneration, even though this is all a part of ancestral veneration and honoring my ancestors, I separated veneration out because to me it is a more, oh God, it's okay. Delivery truck, just shut up. Ah, don't bark. He's here every day. It's okay. There's nobody outside. Don't go outside. Don't do anything. Benji, please. It's all right. Yeah, there's nobody here. It's okay. It's okay. God, having a dog is like having a fucking ticking time bomb. Ah, God damn it. Benji, come here! Veneration is separate because to me veneration is more ritualized. I use the term veneration to include talking about an ancestor altar, daily veneration, and kind of more daily aspects of it. So to start off, we're going to talk about activities. Activities are one of my favorite ways of devoting time to my ancestors. There are 3 activities that I'm bringing into this. And technically everything here is an activity, but these are like more specific. One of which is Scopa, which is kind of included in my learning traditional divinatory methods section, but I have picked up a deck of cards. This specific word for them is not Scopa, that's a game you play with them. Typically the name is just the region. So there's Neapolitan, Piacente, Triestine, Sicilian, and then there are also like Piemontese, Milanese, and Toscane, which are going to use the French suites. I have a deck with coppe, denare, spade, and bastone, which is cups, coins, swords, clubs. So technically, my deck would be a Neapolitan, Piacente, Triestine, or a Sicilian. I can tell you what the name of my deck was because I got a vintage deck. Hold on. Vintage Del Negro Treviso. Del Negro is a brand. And Treviso. So its location was in Treviso. It was in, the headquarters was in Treviso. Whatever. They're playing cards that are typically referred to by regional names, used to play Scopa, as well as other games, and they can also be used for divination. A particular book that talks about this is Italian Folk Magic by Mary Grace Fahrun. She also gives like what each suit means. So if you're interested, I'd recommend that book. I've heard a lot of Italian Americans just refer to them as Scopa cards. It's like Italian playing cards. Northern Italian decks are French inspired and the art style is distinct from Southern Italian decks of South Spanish art style. Same cards, but the art and style change based on the region or in Italy they represent. So if your family hails from Trieste, you might want a Triestine deck. If they hail from Treviso, you might want a Treviginio deck, and mine is a Neapolitan deck. I could not find a Calabria deck. I fucking looked. I could not find one. So if anyone knows where to get Calabrese Italian playing cards, please fucking let me know, because I searched for like days. Nothing. So I'm guessing that the closest that I would use was Sicily, but that doesn't really make any sense because I'm not Sicilian. So I just got playing cards general because I could not find my region, which is sad. But I've been using this book, Italian Folk Magic by Mary Grace Fahrun, to learn the playing cards as a divinatory method. And this includes kind of some of the activities that I've been working on recently, which is learning traditional divination. And this is traditional as in it's using something that most likely other people used Scopa as a divinator, like Scopa card, the playing cards for divination rather than a traditional tarot. I will have to say that it is going to take me a while to learn this. They're a pain in the ass. I don't know if it's just my deck or all deck, but even Mary Grace Fahrun was like, it takes a while, and I'm like, oh yeah, it takes a while. Other traditional divinatory methods that I found are like divining by candle, which I've been doing, specifically ceromancy, which would have been less common. It's just watching the flame to see if it sputters or like burns a certain way. However, I have been doing more ceromancy, specifically taking a candle, asking a question, and burning the candle down, or using it to help me understand how spell work is going to do. As well as that, traditional dream interpretation is very big. Dreams are very big. I don't know why I've been having dreams. I am blaming my commune oil, which you can find at my shop. Actually, you can't, it's sold out, but I will have a restock of it. I have 2 oils available at chaoticwitchhunt.com. But I've been anointing commune, and every time I anoint commune, I have dreams. So I started keeping a dream journal because I literally learned about like dreams being important in Italian American folk magic. I'm like, oh, that's so sad. I don't dream. Psych. I dream a lot, apparently now. And the Italian playing cards are also really good for dream interpretation. One of my most accurate readings from them was interpreting a dream. So it's kind of been going hand in hand. Have dreams, wake up, write them down, use the playing cards to divine on it, go from there. I'm also working on learning the language. I had Duolingo for a bit, and the owl freaked me out.
Looks like you missed your Spanish lesson today. You know what happens now.
As I'm kind of getting more into ancestor veneration, these methods of divination are either coming to my attention more frequently or they're becoming more natural for me. And part of that is when you put enough time into ancestor veneration, shit just starts clicking. It just infuses in your life in a lot of ways. And for me, that is a very powerful thing. Learning the language, of course, takes time, but that is, you know, my goal of mine. I'm never gonna be 100% fluent, most likely, but I can still learn it. I can still speak it. I can still say, even if it's just a little bit words in Italian, I can sing in Italian, I can do these things, and that to me, speaking the language of my ancestors is a form of veneration. It is a devotional activity. Apart from activities are research. This is spending time learning about culture, folk medicine, and more. I actually got a ton of new books recently. Pliny the Elder, Natural History of Selection, Old Calabria, the Encyclopedia of Myths, and Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. And there's a book I got, Black Madonna, Religion, Politics, and Feminism in Italy, that has been really helpful. We never stop learning. You never stop learning. You are always going to continue to learn, especially when reconnecting with a culture that is no longer yours. Especially when you're doing it with ancestor veneration. There will never be a point, there will always be someone who knows more than you. And that's okay. That's literally how we operate in life. There will always be someone who knows more than you. Unless you're the oldest person on earth. But even then, there are gonna be authors who have written things and teachers who have left things behind who knew more than you. So if you're looking into ancestral veneration, if you're looking into reconnection, you have to get comfortable with that. You start off knowing jack shit. You don't know anything. Even now, 2 years in, a lot of people are like, oh, can you teach a class? Oh, can you talk about this? No, I don't know enough. I am not comfortable positioning myself as a teacher in a lot of these areas. If I teach classes, I talk about real basic witchcraft stuff because that I'm more comfortable talking about. This, I am forever a learner. That doesn't mean that I don't get to have a voice and share my experiences, but what it means is that part of my ancestral veneration, part of my devotion to my craft is learning. It is sitting down, learning about culture, folk medicine, food, games. It is getting comfortable talking to people about this and learning from them, having my beliefs shaken every once in a while, being corrected. All of those things are a part of research. I even had a class the other day I took with Lisa Fazio. I talk about her all the time. So if you're not aware, my video on ancestral herbal allies talks more about her and the root circle. However, I was like, she said something and I'm like, oh, that's completely opposite to kind of what I was like thinking, or like what I not learned, but what my opinion on this was. So I took it in stride. We are forever learners. Research is about learning consistently. And research isn't just in books, but we'll get to that later. Food and drink. I have been experimenting with Amaro bitters recently. Amaro is just bitter in Italian. I've been making my own, and I make them for specific purposes. If you want to know more about that, you can subscribe to my Patreon and see the full vlog where I talk about it. It is a huge part of Italian and Italian American culture to have, like, it's like a digestive. You take it after you eat, settles your stomach. I've been working intuitively with a lot of different herbs and creating Amaro for specific purposes. And as I drink more of it, there is a level of like connecting with my ancestors, healing the ancestral gut, as someone told me recently, that is very present in that. Like, when I am drinking something that works with me for ancestral connection, that is that's what's happening, right? So there's a lot there that, you know, I'm connecting with, working with, etc., especially intuitively picking ingredients for different like intentions. I am not making them being like, this is gonna taste good. I'm like, what herbs have magical properties that I can put in here? Other thing is cooking recipes that my mom got from my grandma, that my grandma got from my great-grandma, and some of that is slightly new ingredients because I don't necessarily have access to all the ingredients that they had. The other part of it is I have dietary restrictions, so there are substitutions, and that is part of the journey. It's how do I cook this in a way that allows me to eat it without like taking away from the cultural importance of the dish. So far we've done stew, we've done pasta fagioli, red sauce, garlic, aglio e olio, all of these things that I have kind of worked on creating, and of course a few of them are like comfort meals. But from there, that is a way in which I venerate them, is by making food that they would have eaten or cooked or had as a staple in their life. In a similar vein, veneration is all of this. It is every aspect of what I'm talking about here. Honoring your ancestors doesn't stop at just setting up an altar for them. It is embedding things for them, and especially when you're like me, you're doing reconnection, it's embedding things for them and embedding aspects of reconnection in every part of your life. Sometimes that is beliefs, sometimes that is recognizing it's food, it's activities, it's learning language. An ancestor altar is, you know, an imperative beginning to that practice. I do have an ancestor altar. It's putting offerings on it every day. It's stopping, slowing down, and communing with them as often as I can. It's communing with them through what I eat, drink, what I do, what I believe, what I am learning. It is, in a lot of ways, healing generational trauma that was passed down generations from them to me. It is also holding them and understanding that they are a part of me. I am one of them. I am an ancestor. They are my ancestors, and kind of working with that and holding them there and being like, hi. When I feed me, when I feed myself, I am feeding them. When I am reconnecting with these things, I am reconnecting with them. The final aspect of this is community. Because ancestral veneration, at least for an Italian American, our folk magic, our beliefs, our medicine is so communal. Community, as my teacher says, is a form of protection. It is knowing you are loved. It is knowing that you have people there who support you. A big portion and part of why when we receive amulets, charms, etc. as gifts, it is passing that protection, is knowing someone cared about you enough to give you something that protects you. That in itself is protection. Our community is protection. With this community, there is a connecting with, learning from, and just being with people who are Italian American. It is spending time with them. It is talking with them about things. It is in many ways another aspect of ancestor veneration, because they are in a lot of ways my living ancestors. This community that I connect with, that my friends, my teachers, my family, my peers, they are my ancestors. They are living, breathing extensions of this culture that I am working to reconnect with, and my ancestors that I am working to reconnect with. And I think that community is one of those things that we don't often look at as part of ancestor veneration, but in order to venerate your ancestors, you have to know them. You have to know people that came from where they came from. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like go out of your way and meet people in real life. Not everyone has the accessibility to do so, but surrounding yourself with people who are similar to you, with family, being in communion with those who hold their identity, who have the same identity as you. There's a level to it that's interesting, because as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking of all the people that are around me in my community, and it's not just about ancestral veneration, it's also about reconnection with that culture and learning from living people, learning from other members of the community also in that culture. At the same time, there are a lot of people in my community who I'm friends with, who are my peers, that are not in the same culture as me, and to me, that is still part of ancestor veneration. Putting my roots down because community was so important, because community still is so important. Family and community as the most important things in Italy and in Italian American families means that is what I am doing now. I'm putting my roots down with people, I'm making family, I'm creating community as a folk practitioner, as someone who is an Italian American, as someone who is working to reconnect. Community is so fucking important, at least in my tradition. And there may be traditions where that isn't the case, where individuality and kind of there's like community doesn't exist. But for a lot of folk magics and a lot of reconnection to that, it is very important, because the magic comes from the people. It is born with the people, it is transferred by the people, it lives and continues to live in the people. In order to know folk magic, you must know the people. This is in a lot of ways a very vulnerable video for me. I've talked a lot in the past about my ancestral veneration or how to kind of start, but I've never really broken down all of the elements of mine. I had a meeting the other day, an ancestral connection session with Simaruta Remedies, and it allowed me space to not only process a lot of grief that I was holding, being, you know, a reconnector, but also just to kind of sit with someone who understood. And that is something that is valuable in so many ways that I don't think people conceptualize, is that if you sit with someone who says, I get it, I understand, you are seen. That is healing. It is healing for you, and it is healing for your ancestors who have held this grief for so long and have passed it to you. And in a lot of ways, that isn't just Italian Americans, that is displaced peoples. It is people who were literally put into slavery. Being around people who look at you and say, I understand your pain. I understand your grief. I understand. Let's process it together. That is amazing. It is one of the most valuable parts of community, and it is part of ancestral veneration. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to hear more about this, I will pin those videos around at the end. If you want to see my Patreon, that'll be in the bio. But remember to drink water. If you want, you can comment, like, subscribe, turn the bell on, but absolutely no pressure. Remember to have an amazing rest of your day. Siate benedetti.